Hello, this is Nicole coming to you from SoulFlwr with our SoulGarden podcast, the Other Sheep series, episode 17. Thank you for tuning in to our podcast where we have discussions about life, and it's actually just a call out to our what we call the spiritual orphan, which is another name for them is called the other sheep. It's what we call them here at SoulFlwr. So let's get into our discussion for today. But before we do that, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps us out a lot to get the word out to people that are like us that need this information and can benefit from it. Um, and also, let's get into our disclaimers right quick. This is not a formal podcast. It's not religious or spiritual. It's soul conscious. That means it's open to everybody. There isn't any exclusivity on it. No matter what you believe, the podcast is for you. With the exception of you believing it's not for you. The future subjects are for learning and learning purposes. It's for the opportunity to purpose the growth. SoulFlwr is not attempting to convert anyone. This is not a religion or a spiritual organization. This is a sacred service. We are merely lifelong seekers, students of life, and educators. Uh, this is our sacred service. Take what resonates, leave the rest. This is not a podcast for children under the age of 18. So parents, adjust accordingly because we do not advocate for children having exposure to the information that is a part of this podcast. Yes, they will benefit from it. They can, but it also can be detrimental. So, uh, adjust accordingly. Last but not least, we don't reach out to you for services. This is our reach out. This is our sacred service right here. We don't own the rights to this uh, background music from Meditative Mind. It's a God frequency binaural beat just for the people that are tuning in with their headphones to benefit from. Um, and the images, we don't own the images that we have as well. We will let you know what concepts and images that we own. We do own the other sheep concept. Um, and the mastery learning concept that is intertwined with personal growth. From a personal growth perspective, we're coining it as well. But everything else comes from the research that we have been so privileged to have access to over our 25 years of being on the path. All right, so that's the end of our disclaimers. We're going to get into episode 17, which is called Spiritual Bypass. It's a fairly new term. It's not that old, but it is becoming increasingly popular due to the fact that we have more exposure to different types of practices for personal growth and spirituality and religion now. Since the information age is here, we have unlimited access to these things. So it's up to us to make sure that we don't fall into this particular pitfall, because it is a pitfall, and it is a pitfall for the leading edge divergent, especially. Um, at this time, we are seeking to be more acclimated towards more quote unquote light aspects of living: joy, love, compassion, empathy, those things, due to the age that we are entering into as far as a human race. However, we do still have pitfalls that we have to be aware of, and spiritual bypassing is one of those pitfalls. It is for the other sheep, the spiritual orphan, those of us that depend on ourselves to we take responsibility for our own spirituality and personal growth and self-development. It's particularly dangerous for us because we don't always have that sounding board, that accountability partner that we need. However, some of us have found people that are in our corners that we can talk to, but there are some of us that haven't. So, this is a discussion about this for all of us to be aware of when it comes to our personal development or our spiritual practice, religion, whatever you ascribe to. Um, I'm thinking, let's move on, see what's next. So let's talk about what spiritual bypassing is. Generally speaking, it is the use of a spiritual practice, a religion, personal development tool to avoid dealing with difficult emotions and unresolved issues. It can involve using spirituality, personal development tools, or religion to build a false sense of superiority. That's one of the first red flags of spiritual bypassing, is that false sense of spirituality, that superiority as well. When you start feeling like you're better than other people, that's a good telltale sign that you're entering into that dangerous field of spiritual bypassing. A great antidote for spiritual bypassing, we will get into, is mindfulness. Uh, Paying attention to who you are in the moment is one of the best and effective methods for alleviating and eliminating opportunities for you to slip into spiritual bypassing. In essence, for me personally, in my path, spiritual bypassing is when the inability to tell ourselves the truth about a person, place, or thing. That's how I break it down to make it as practical as I can. The spiritual bypassing is a toxic form of spirituality. Again, one of the telltale signs is that false sense of superiority, due to the fact that there is a belief that you could possibly be more spiritual than another person. You can have a series of awakenings. However, we all are made of the same thing, so we all we all are the same value. There are some of us that are aware and some of us that are not. That's the only difference. Um, Anything that causes us to lie to ourselves is not only is self betrayal, and we that is the Achilles heel for the leading edge diversion, or what we call the other sheep. Let's look at some of the stuff that we got on the presentation here. Toxic spirituality is holier than thou, dismissive, passive aggressive, shaming, repressive, obsessed with the light, pretentious, disconnected from the body, and oppressive. And we are all just as likely to fall in this trap as anyone else. Everything has a shadow and a light side, including spirituality. So that's another thing that will keep us out of the pitfalls of spiritual bypassing, is that balance between the light and the shadow side. Shadow integration uh, reduces significantly our ability to or even our desire to spiritual bypass. Deconstruction, which is another sign of spiritual bypassing, is a threat to toxic religion and abusive communities that label cruelty as God's will. Deconstruction is what they do to cults. It's a type of programming that they use to rebalance people that have been a part of extreme groups. We'll get into the definition of cult and stuff like that in a few minutes. I think you'll be surprised in what you'll find out about what a cult really is. All right, let's talk. We did the definitions. Let's talk about the examples of spiritual bypassing. Avoiding feelings of anger. Again, these are only examples of not telling ourselves the truth about a situation. Because anything that causes us to lie to ourselves leads to spiritual bypassing, leads to self-betrayal, which is the fertilizer for spiritual bypass. Believing our ass is okay and we're not. Just because we want to be okay doesn't mean we are. We must tell ourselves the truth. But back to the presentation. Signs of spiritual bypassing. Avoiding feelings of anger. You're pissed off and don't want to be pissed off, but you want to continue to act like you're not pissed off. Meanwhile, those feelings of anger are going into your shadow. You're repressing, suppressing, denying, and rejecting it. It's only going to come up later on. The spiritual bypassing is like taking Tylenol for a chronic illness. Believing that traumatic events have a silver lining. Now, there is balance with this. There are silver linings in everything. However, we can only find the silver lining when we go through the process. The silver lining doesn't come before the process. It comes after the process. So once we process those traumatic events in healthy and healing ways, then we can uh, create the silver lining and reframe our story that we tell ourselves so that we can continue on being healthy and healing. Overemphasizing the positive, being overly positive. Um, we want good things to occur. Everyone wants good things to happen. We all do. That's not a generalization. That's just a fact of life. We would rather be comfortable. However, that's not the way life is set up. Life is random, and time and chance happens to us all. Uh, and this is not putting a cloud over, the sun here. It's not raining on your parade. It's just having balance. There are some days that will be more challenging than others, and it's okay to acknowledge that. Minimizing or denying negative aspects of oneself. We do that when we're trying to fit in, trying to belong, which is another way. Uh, it's a need. The need of belonging is a human condition. We must acknowledge it. At the same time, minimizing or denying aspects of ourselves just to belong or fit in, which is a temptation for what we call the other sheep. That shit is not going to work. It's going to create a great, vast episode of suffering. Um, and I wish that that wasn't the case, but patterns do not lie. And if you genuinely look at the patterns in your life, you will see how minimizing or denying any aspect of yourself has not served you. Not even a little bit. To fit in, to belong within that context. Being overly detached, not caring, or caring too much. Being overly idealistic, it goes back to being overly positive. Having feelings of entitlement. Just because you believe you deserve something, you deserve some type of treatment doesn't mean that that's true. Those feelings of entitlement goes into our religious cultures as well. We develop a sense of entitlement when we feel like we're chosen over other people. We're more special than other people when we're all made of the same thing. We're all made of energy. And we all have the free will choice to decide who we are going to become in each and every moment as a result of that. So feelings of entitlement are illusion. It is self-betrayal, and it is spiritual bypassing. It gives you the excuse to mistreat people. Big one, pretending everything is okay when it's not. That's one of the common doors for spiritual bypass. We There's a balance. We can't pretend that everything is okay when it's not. We have to we have to process and then create a space for everything to be okay, even when it's not. All right. Escapism. Using your spiritual practice or your religion to escape reality. That is the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be using these tools, our personal developed tools, our spiritual practice, and our whatever our religious rituals are. We are supposed to be using these things to process what has occurred, not to put a band-aid over it. So that's how you can tell whether or not what you're doing is authentic or not as well. Can it help you process a negative experience or an uncomfortable experience? Here's the risk of spiritual bypass. You can harm people who are already vulnerable, hurt people unintentionally. That's authority abuse. We'll get into a long podcast about that later because, we got some shit on our chest. Especially, with me being part of Gen X, we got something to say about about authority. Can lead to emotional dissociation, difficulty expressing emotions, and anger phobia. Now, this starts out on the individual level, but I can definitely place this with collective events as well. Can lead to cognitive dissonance. That's when you don't want to accept reality, even though it's tangible evidence right there. It's a form of like conscious denial, cognitive dissonance. Anxiety, which is phobic. You become phobic. Blind allegiance to leaders. And that's where we fall into our religious uh, institutions, our cults, even corporate does this. Let's see. Here's some terms right here that I put in the presentation too. You create your own happiness. That's a spiritual passing statement. Everything happens for a reason. That could be a spiritual bypassing statement. This is all part of God's plan, so rejoice. See, all of this is you gotta know when to say this shit. Because there are certain situations where this is dismissive. Just focus on forgiveness. Good vibes only. Let go and let God. You are too blessed to be sad. Faith over fear. The universe must be trying to teach you something. Rise above your feelings. Now, these can be affirmations. At the same time, they can also be detrimental. Again, there's a light and dark aspect to everything, and everything must be done in balance. And right after, in these statements, we can use those after we've processed some shit. This is not an excuse for what occurred. There's a difference. The event that occurred has to be acknowledged and processed in order for these affirmations that you see on the screen to work. And they come after the fact, not as an excuse or before. All right, so remember I said we were going to talk about what cults are. I came across this definition when I was getting my bachelor's. I got a minor in religious studies from the University of Tennessee at Martin here in Tennessee. And it was I don't know if they restarted the program, but I was one of the last people to graduate with this particular minor. That it was on its way out, and it was a very interesting thing for me because I learned so much in such a little time with this minor. And the definition of cult was one of it. I had the privilege of having professors that were not Christian. Uh, they were skeptics, agnostics. I had a different range of them. Some of them had went to theological school, and then other ones were like flat out skeptics, agnostics. I don't think I've had the pleasure of speaking with an atheist as a professor, but I did uh, have the opportunity to have an agnostic one, uh, and he was highly skeptical. This is one of the definitions that was presented to me uh, at that time, and it is the definition of cult: a system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object, a misplaced or excessive admiration for a particular person or thing. And what he pointed out was that our religious institutions are a part of this definition. Our spiritual communities are a part of this definition. The gurus, uh, all the popes, all the spiritual authority, things that have spiritual authorities in place, fit under this definition. And it's mind blowing because the cognitive dissonance and the spiritual bypassing that's going on in our collective consciousness in the West here is that we don't believe that we are a part of this system here, this cult system. You leave that up to, you're not like the Mansons or the other extreme cults that had the Kool-Aid and all of that. But all of that is absolutely a part of that within the context of this um, definition here. So I just thought that was an interesting point to bring out. It definitely has assisted me on my journey. I think one of the key signs for spiritual bypassing too is the inability to hear another perspective outside of your own when it comes to spirituality, personal development, or religion as well, because there's that sense of entitlement that can be the reason for that, believing that you're the only special one. That's not the case. That's not the case. Another reason why we have the other sheep series, out of John 10 and 16, because there are different forms in all forms of culture, all time, all forms of time. There's just a diverse variety of all of this and beyond. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see that everybody is a part of red Kool-Aid droop, so to speak. Well, we talked about the risks of spiritual bypassing. I do not know what I wanted to say there. On a collective level, it's all the shit we already got: racism, religious wars, wars, rumors of wars, all of that shit. Um, Let me see. Yeah, it makes us extra judgmental, and it gives us an excuse. That's the danger. It gives us the excuse to mistreat people that are just like us but live in a different way. Um, just like the genocides, all of that, all the isms, racism, sexism, all of that is due to spiritual bypass, because a lot of times people are mistreated due to the fact that somebody is practicing some type of spiritual thing where they're uncomfortable with what you are or what you're doing because it's some form of practice that they're doing, which has absolutely nothing to do with you, because that's personal. Let's see. We don't realize that the ego is really crafty, and that's a risk of spiritual bypassing. Uh, we don't realize that our ego knows us very well. It knows how to get our consent with shit, and that's dangerous, especially when we're not being aware, we're not integrating our shadow, because we're just throwing shit there to take out on other people later on, and then justifying that shit. And then when you're confronted by it, you just do spiritual bypassing or cognitive dissonance. But that desire to do anything to alleviate discomfort, that is definitely a human condition that we have to monitor, because it really stunts our growth on a personal and collective level. Another risk of spiritual bypassing. Just, I mean, it can play out in the full spectrum of our growth, from individual to cosmic. Um, I think that spiritual bypassing, the silver lining, is that the other sheep exists. That there are people, that it actually makes people that really want to add value to the world. Um, if you're really being honest with yourself about what you're doing out here, are you really seeking to add value and to help create change in the world, even on a minor scale, even if it's just opening the door for someone, just passing through. You know, it's it really does help us to discern who is really seeking to connect with others on a healthy and healing level, and who's not. And it's just so many different ways to fall into spiritual bypassing, because again, we all want to feel special, and that's just a natural trigger for our ego, and we all want to be right. So that is most definitely some things that we can watch out for when we are looking to not spiritual bypass, and that entitlement element, that wanting to be right and wanting to be special. I think that those are the three top temptations that puts us at risk for spiritual bypass. All right. And it talks about this slide is just talking about how to balance, which we have discussed earlier. Emotional intelligence helps a lot with identifying spiritual bypassing. Getting comfortable with your own energy, how you think, how you feel, your behaviors, what is natural to you, honestly and truly, with transparency. Uh, Once you know that, you have the ability to be able to discern between what is supporting you and what you're using as an excuse. Uh, on the screen is some examples about how you can actually support other people instead of giving them those blanket statements that we tend to give people when they're facing some type of crisis or anything that's major that may be going on. Um, these two these two things that I found here on the internet, they give you a good example of what support versus what is bypassing. Alrighty. The person that coined the term spiritual bypassing, and I did not write down his name, but I quoted him. My bad, y'all. But his last name is Masters. He says aspects of spiritual bypassing include exaggerated detachment, emotional numbing and repression, overemphasis on the positive, anger phobia, blind or overtly tolerant compassion, weak or too porous boundaries, lopsided development, cognitive intelligence, often being ahead of emotional and moral intelligence. Again, remember we talked about those different forms of intelligence. We have to be balanced in all of those forms. Just because you're smart doesn't mean that you have emotional intelligence or that you have character. So those are different things that we have to look at when it comes to our personal aspects. Debilitating judgment about one's negativity or shadow elements. That's another form of shame. Devaluation re- of the personal relative to the spiritual. That's ignoring reality. Like, that fake it till you make it shit. Laying hands on a car that need a radiator. You know, those are spiritual bypassing examples. And delusions of having arrived at a higher level of being. Yeah, that's a dangerous one. The delusions of having arrived at a higher level of being, depending on what you practice. Because again, information has a price. And a lot of this shit you gotta practice. You just can't just look at this shit and go on. You have to start practicing this shit once you become aware of it, which is the antidote to spiritual bypassing. Is mindfulness, getting aware, becoming aware of our potential spots where we can spiritual bypass. All right. Ingrid Clayton says spiritual bypass shields us from the truth. It disconnects us from our feelings and helps us to avoid the big picture. It is more about checking out rather than checking in. The difference is so subtle that we usually don't even know we are doing it. And that is easy to shift in the spiritual bypass. That's why mindfulness is the antidote. Because mindfulness keeps us in the now. And it keeps us aware of our feelings, aware of the bigger picture. And it keeps us constantly checking in. That way we can be able to make out those subtle shifts and can, nip it in the bud. All right. There's some more forms of toxic spirituality, spiritual bypassing, not telling ourselves the truth about situations, spiritual narcissism. That's another. Uh, that's something that thrives off of spiritual bypassing. Purity culture, spiritual narcissism thrives off of that. Judging people based on the new conscious or how spiritual evolved they are. Yeah, yeah. Religious intolerance and cultural appropriation. All of those is when you desecrate someone's spiritual or religious practice. Just because you see it as archaic or whatever you making a judgment of, it doesn't mean it's not sacred to that individual. And I think that's in essence what spiritual toxic spirituality is making somebody else's shit toxic and putting yours on the pedestal. All right. If you want to know more about spiritual bypassing, you can email us at SoulFlwrinc@gmail.com, or you can book a discovery call with us at www.soulflwrllc.com. Um, you can message us on TikTok. You can message us on Facebook. You can message us. I don't know if you can message us on YouTube or not, but those are our three platforms. We do thank you for tuning in. But like I said, if you want to know more about this or you want to do some things, please be reminded we are uh, in the personal development field. We can help you. We can help you come up with a plan and help you to enforce that plan to completion, and you get effective results based off of that, based off of our mastery learning uh, methods and designs. But yeah, reach out to us. And again, check out the guest speaker in the podcast before this. It was episode 16 with Aria Solis. It was really good about creating your reality. She gives a really great explanation, very practical chick, very good chick. Check out her platforms. And support good people, y'all. Support people that genuinely want to help others. That's what this podcast is about. We're reaching out to you so that you can get started, so that other people can see that there are other good people on this planet. All right? Mastery card and energy report. Let's do the energy report first. The theme for the energy of the week is transparency. This is the last call for us to tell ourselves the truth, which it goes right along with our podcast subject of spiritual bypassing. So spiritual bypassing is fucking out and cognitive dissonance at this time. The energy report has been following the same thing that has been following since the beginning of the year. It's time to tell ourselves the truth. We just had a new moon to pass. So now's a great time for inner reflection, meditation, any type of inner healing, inner workings. Inner child work is a great time right now to do that. The retrogrades have already started. We had the seven planet parade last Friday. So now Venus is in retrograde, and on the 14th of March, Mercury is going to go in retrograde. And it'll be time, well, it just put us again in a time of reflection and emotion and caution for the next 3 weeks. I wouldn't sign any contracts. That's a common thing with Mercury retrograde. So if you're getting ready to try to launch some shit, it's a good time to wait. Don't sign any contracts if you don't have to. Uh, I don't know if this is a good retrograde to get married or not either. I'm not feeling it, but you know, you never know. Just be more mindful of how you communicate. Moving forward. Yeah, be more mindful of how you communicate. I had a little glitch, y'all. Give me just a second. I don't know why that happened, but it did. I guess I'm getting a little Mercury retrograde action early. I usually do. I have, but that's for a reason. But yeah, be more mindful of how you communicate and how you make agreements. Be thinking about who you want to become and start walking in it. Just because you don't have the money doesn't mean you can't start walking and you can start thinking about how you would feel, how you would think if you were the person that you're becoming. So you can start there. It starts on the inside and then it manifests on the outside. So that is the energy report for now. I did tell y'all that Mercury's going in retrograde on the 14th and Venus is down in retrograde. It went retrograde the day, I think Saturday, this past Saturday. But on to the mastery card, assuming financial responsibility. Okay, y'all, so when I shuffle these cards, I know for a fact at least once we've had the same card twice on two separate episodes. That's liable to happen. I'm not going to change it. If it come back up, then we need to hear it again. And I think this might be one we've had before, assuming financial responsibility. Today I will repair and restore my money-related issues. I will not allow others to hurt me financially, and I will take responsibility for any matters that I've created. I will ask Spirit to help me with the details of my financial life, and I will trust that everything will work out in the best way possible. That is the Mastery card, assuming financial responsibility. All right, y'all, that concludes our podcast. Thank y'all for listening. Please share the love by liking, subscribing, and sharing. Next week, uh, we are scheduled to have our other SoulFlwr representative to come on and talk to us about mindfulness. We're gonna see if that happens.
Oh, y'all better get excited because I'm pulling up and coming through, and you better be ready.
So tune in as Sean comes on and talks about mindfulness and give us some introduction for meditation. I don't know if I'm gonna be in on it or not. It just depends on if she want me to do that or not. But we'll see you then. Uh, please look at our social media handles on Facebook, on TikTok, and here on YouTube. Also, we have a new article on brainsmagazine.com. What's the name of this one? Lord, I wrote it and now I don't know what the hell it is. Is it how to know if the mastery path is for you? No, I think it's about spiritual bypassing. Yeah, I think it's about spiritual bypassing. So it goes right along with the podcast. If you want to communicate with us, just email the email address on the screen. and we'll get with you. Or you can go to the website on the screen as well. You can message us on Facebook, on TikTok. We can't on here, I don't think. But thank you again. Until next time, love, light, and unity, and live well but die free.